Content warning. This episode contains material of a highly sensitive nature, including sexual assault, child abuse, and self-harm that may be triggering for some individuals. Well, Matt, welcome to another episode of Screen King, Stephen King from Page to Screen. My name is Matt, and joining me as always is Stacy. Hello, Stacy.
Hello, Matt.
I'm very excited for this one to talk about this book and movie because it was the first time read and watch for me on both. So I'm really excited to get to talk about it. And I don't want to give anything away, but I had a real good time. So let's just go ahead and get into it.
Okay.
Let's start by talking about the book, Dolores Claiborne.
Mm-hmm.
Had you read this book before?
I had read it a very long time ago. I did not really, all I really remembered was the well. Like I knew there was a well involved. I knew that there was abuse involved and somebody falling down the stairs, and like that's all I really remembered. So obviously not really. It was pretty much a first time. Might as well have been.
Yeah. And just anybody who didn't see our last episode, the reason we decided to do this one was because we talked about Gerald's Game last time, and the fact that there was a connection between Gerald's Game and Dolores Claiborne kept coming up, and we had a different one planned, and we're just like, why don't we just do Dolores Claiborne next? And so that's what we did, and I had a blast with this book. I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook, the woman who reads it, I've just forgotten her name. I had it before. I'll look it up, but the woman who reads the book is so good. She does such a good job. And the thing about the book, if you have not read the book, is that it is entirely first person Dolores Claiborne telling her story to a cop, Andy, and it's the kind of thing that you might think might get old, or they'll have to switch to a different perspective at some point or something. It never once got old for me. I will say, if I have to ding this book for anything, and I really don't have much negative to say about this book. If I had to criticize it at all, I will say we spent far too much time in the first 30 pages talking about an old woman shitting. Far too long.
You have to feel her pain, okay?
That's true, and I recognize that. So it's not a criticism necessarily, but I was just like, gosh, this has been so long. We have been talking about this for so long. But the fun thing is that, like, even if you feel that way once you're at that point, looking back, it doesn't seem as bad, because by that point you don't know Dolores like you will know her, and by the time you get to know her, that all like feels right and makes sense. But just that first little bit, I was like, gosh, I hope there is more to this than than what I'm reading here. But tell me about your revisit, and did it jog anything from your first time, or did it feel pretty fresh and new?
Well, I also listened to it,
Nice.
and I also very much enjoyed the audiobook. I thought it was great, and it really like kept me captivated. I listened to it very quickly. It was like 3 to 5 days that I listened to it in, because I just kept putting it on all the time. Which it says a lot about the book. It was all somewhat familiar. I mean, I had read and seen the movie, so it was all a bit familiar, but nothing was like, oh, this is repetitive or I'm bored with it, or like it was a bit like as it went, I, was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, but it was nothing I really remembered, like when you rehear it,
Yeah,
you kind of remember, but it wasn't ever stale or old to me.
right. The audiobook, I have just looked it up, is narrated by, gosh, Frances Sternhagen.
Okay,
Uh, and she,
it was
man,
great.
like literally the only person I think
Mhm.
could have done a better job was if Kathy Bates had
He
read it
makes it,
herself.
yeah. Uh, it's one of the rare. I am not. I don't take information in as well auditorily as I do visually. So
Mhm,
usually, if I really want to like get into a book, especially if I haven't read it before or it's been a long time, I'll actually physically read it. But
mhm.
this is one of the rare times I think that the audio book probably is better than reading
Right.
it. So
I will say this also. It had just the right amount, the audiobook had just the right amount of extra stuff like sound effects and stuff like
yeah,
that. I'm not a huge fan of
me
overproduced
neither. Me neither.
audiobooks. Um, I don't. I listen to Star Wars books sometimes, and
Mhm.
sometimes they're on a jungle planet, and I don't want to hear the bugs in the background, but I have to listen to
Mhm.
it for however long they're on the jungle planet. That kind of stuff just bugs me. But this had just the right amount of, hey, can I have a glass of water? You hear a glass of water being poured,
Right.
and
It's
then it moves
almost
on.
unnoticeable because
Right.
it fits in so seamlessly. You almost don't even notice. Because I'm the same way, especially because I listen to audiobooks a lot before I go to sleep. So
Hmm.
like anything that's gets like a ton of sound effects or loud music or like we won't talk about it really because there is no adaptation, but the Insomnia audiobook has
Hmm.
these really loud jarring sounds. Like God forbid I was drifting off and be like, like I'm not even exaggerating, like, and it would be louder than the narration. It was just awful. Not that Insomnia the story is awful, but I don't recommend at least whatever version of the audiobook I listen to, unless you like
I
screeching jarring sounds.
I listened to that same audiobook, and while there's not an adaptation, I imagine we might review it at some point because I really really like that book.
Mhm.
Um,
And it
I
is
did listen
closely
to the
linked to a lot of other books.
exactly, so we may review it at some point. But I will say that I remember that audiobook, and yes, it does have that audio stuff. But I believe it is. If that's the same one, I believe it is read by Eli Wallach, and he is so good at
Yeah,
that. So
I mean
it
everything
is
else
a
of it was
balance.
great, but that was just so bad. Like
Yeah.
it was just
Oh yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm with you on that. But this one, this audiobook just had the
Yeah, it
right
was great.
like balance. It was
Mhm.
very good. So anyway, after we get past the kind of Vera Donovan at old age
Yeah.
bowel movement episode of
The
of
introduction
of
to
the
the
book,
characters.
yeah. Um, we get into basically the life story of Dolores Claiborne.
Mhm.
And one thing I liked, and the movie, and we'll talk about the movie in a minute, the movie did this as well, but actually even more than the book does. I like how she's like, listen, I'm going to talk about things in the past and the present and before and after the event and all the things in between, and I'm just going to jump
Mhm.
back and forth, so you just have to forgive me. Like, she says that,
Yeah.
and she does, and I really appreciate that. But I feel like I never got lost. Like, I always
Right.
understood
Right. It's not
exactly what you were
jarring in
listening to.
any way.
Right.
It flows. You almost forget that she's jumping around because it does flow seamlessly, almost like a linear story. But I think that goes back to the first person storytelling
Hmm.
way it's written. Because that's how
Right.
people tell stories most of the time.
Exactly. And it did. It felt exactly like a person telling a story. Especially,
Mhm.
a lot of people will know these type of people. I'm from Oklahoma, so we've got and you're from the Northeast, so I think
Mhm.
there is a similar specific type of person who will who has a lot to say but rarely has anybody who will listen to them, and so when you do get them
Yeah.
to finally say some things, like,
Mhm.
it could go on for a long long time. It felt like that, and it felt very
Mhm.
very real, and
Mhm.
that made this story very very rich for me. um
Yes.
one thing, and we'll talk about it a little bit later because it in our number one fan section because it is mentioned. But one thing I found out whilst I was reading this is that um, after seeing Misery, Stephen King decided to basically have Kathy Bates play her in his mind. So as he's writing it, he's writing it as though Kathy Bates is playing her.
Yeah,
Which
that makes
I
sense.
think, which yes, it does. It feels like, and I think that informs the character itself because while it may not always be great to have to be thinking in terms of a movie when you're writing a book, I think that it did help. I think it probably helps solidify this character in his mind a little bit more, and that's probably why she feels like such a real and rich character.
Right.
But I thought that was a pretty cool tidbit. This one and just real quick, going back to what we were talking about with the storytelling and how it's not linear, but it doesn't feel jarring. If we go back to Misery, which is a book that we both liked, but wasn't like our favorites.
Right.
If you go back to that, there's so many parts in that book, especially like when he loses his thumbs, where it is jarring. Like you don't know that there's
yeah, exactly. Kind of you're like, wait, what? Why does he not have a thumb?
Right, exactly. And eventually the book gets you there, but it feels jarring. This never ever feels that way, which I absolutely love.
Of what we've done so far, this has definitely been my favorite revisit, which I feel is probably kind of a hot take since Misery was our first one, and it's definitely, I think, widely considered a better book, but I like this one better.
This is bar none. We've only done 3, so bar none is always a weird thing to say. This is by far my favorite of the books we've read
so far. Yeah, absolutely.
It is honestly, it's one of my favorite that I've read of his canon. Like really? It's probably top 5 for me. Like it, I loved this a lot. And it explores many of the same themes. And we talked about this because it was, there's a connection between Gerald's Game and Dolores Claiborne. I thought everywhere that the themes lined up on this, Dolores Claiborne did it better in every situation.
Absolutely. I think part of that is too because we're getting told what happened, not living in that moment with the character.
That's true.
And I think that makes a big difference in how squeamish it is.
Yeah.
So.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think that's probably accurate, very accurate. But everything from the sexual assault stuff to any sort of abuse that happens in it to everything just felt like it was handled so much better. I don't know which was written first.
I believe Misery came first. Not Misery. I mean, I think Joe. Not sure actually. I want to say Gerald's Game came first, but I'm definitely not positive about that.
I feel that's what I have believed about it.
But look it up. I'll check.
But if that is the case, it feels like maybe that might be why. Like it feels like maybe the Gerald's Game might have been a first run at the subject matter, and so once he had gotten the first run, he was able to take that second run a little bit more smoothly. But yeah, just everything that it covered in terms of themes. What's that?
So Gerald's Game did come first, but they were both in 1992. So he must have written them like really back to back because Gerald's Game was May of 92 and Dolores Claiborne was November of 92.
Okay, so yeah, but yes, they were. So it was in the order that I was thinking it was in, but. And there's a reason for that because he intended to have them much more connected than he ended up having them. Yeah. Good.
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Oh, okay. So he intended to have them much more connected, and on some level, I'm like, wow, I would have liked to see in what ways they were more connected. I felt that way after reading Gerald's Game. After Dolores Claiborne, I'm like, I'm actually pretty satisfied with the amount that they're connected because I thought that the connection part was also done really, really well in this because she has
It made
more
me,
incidents of it.
yes, it made me feel like the connection was really coming from Dolores's end of things. Like we had discussed Jesse and the Shine, and I mean, Dolores definitely has a touch of the Shine for
Yes.
sure. Because, I mean, I say a touch because we've seen characters so strong in the
Right.
Shine that it's like nowhere near that, but it's definitely more than Jesse would have. And
Yep.
so I think that the amounts are appropriate for the characters.
Hmm.
But yeah, I also really liked how it was done. And that
Yeah.
she was thinking about her later.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it really, honestly, like, part of that was even helping her come to terms with what she had done,
Right.
like which I really really liked. um
Mhm.
Speaking of the Shine, because I was going to mention this, I have started a document of people that I think, as we go through, people I think, and maybe not, maybe they aren't going to have the Shine, but once we discuss it, but people that I think might have the Shine, either in large amounts or small amounts. I think that Dolores Claiborne is on there for sure,
Oh
more than
yeah.
Jesse, I think,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of things. Number one, the connection that they have feels definitely
Mhm.
like a connection to The Shining, but also like she also, just like Jesse did in Gerald's game, at some points knew what someone was thinking,
You're right. Yeah, she
and the
definitely
wording was very very similar too, like not in a
right.
way that it felt like I am doing this because of my human empathy and because I can
Mhm.
kind of understand what they're going through. It was, I know what she's thinking.
So in Gerald's game, as I said when we discussed that, it felt more to me like Jesse's interpretation of how things were going.
Hmm.
But with Dolores, it felt to me like she was reading minds. Like I
Right.
don't know if it was the way she said it, but it definitely was more like, oh, she can read minds. She just doesn't know like how or when. Like she can't control necessarily that much when she reads minds. And it's crazy
Right.
that she never knew that the kids were dead. Ferris kids were dead
All
all
right.
that time because she does have the Shine. It's
Right.
like she didn't even want to know. But
I think that that's what it is. I think she
yeah,
did not want to know.
yeah.
I do. There is a third person on my list now, and it is from this book. And I didn't come to this until really the very end of the book. Um, but I also feel that Vera Donovan has a touch of the Shine, and here's why. And she might not. But number one, the dust bunnies. She sees something. It
Mhm.
something is, she sees something. I don't know what it is, but that alone doesn't do it. Because I was thinking, I wonder
Mhm.
what that is. If that's something that's, if that's a bit of the Shine, what is
Mhm.
it? I wasn't convinced. I was convinced when she force ghosted her way into a scene with Dolores Claiborne, um, when she shows up, like, and talks to her, and
Mhm.
Dolores made a point to say, I was not imagining it. She was
Mhm.
talking to me, which is a Shining thing to be able to hear it, but it
Mhm.
reminded me of Dan and Dick's
Yes.
relationship, and
Mhm.
they both have the Shine. So it made me feel like maybe Vera has a Shine. I'm not as convinced as I am with the other two, but it
Yeah.
does make me feel like maybe Vera has a touch of the Shine as well.
So with the dust bunnies, I did keep wondering, like, are we gonna go into this more? But then, like, just before, after she fell down the steps, or just before she fell down the steps, she said something about the bastard haunting her, trying to get her for however many years, which I thought she
Mhm.
was referring to her husband, who she had
Right.
killed, and that's who I thought she was like kind of seeing in the dust bunnies. But I took it more as out of like guilt and old age, like dementia, because she definitely wasn't always like lucid in
Right.
herself than anything else. I do think you're much more liberal in the shot with the Shine than I am. I'm kind of like a little
Are you
stingy. Like
believe it?
you have to be special. Like you have to be real special to have it. So I don't know. I'm a little stingier with giving it out.
And that makes sense. And first of all, let me just say that that was the battle in my mind. Is like, is
Mhm,
this just her reckoning with something, or
mhm.
is it whatever? But being able to see dead people is also part of The Shining. So
Right.
there is that. So I don't know, but it wasn't until she was there in Force Ghost form that I
Mhm,
was like, maybe that's what's. But I don't know. I'm not as convinced. And yes, I am probably a bit more. And I will say that I'm going to keep this list. Not all of them
mhm,
necessarily are going to, cut the mustard, but some of them I'm
mhm,
just going to be like, I wonder if this. And yes, you do have to be special. But when Dr. Sleep showed us that there was a lot more
Oh
than
yeah,
just so there's a
100%.
lot more out there, and
But
I think that because it's being written by Stephen King, it is it does feel like we are more likely to come across it than
well,
necessarily a person in the wild would come across it.
well, yes, it does. But I think Little Tall Island is not a big place, and
Mm-hmm.
as we also see in Storm of the Century. But
I was going to mention that, yeah.
so the likelihood of there being two women there with it, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like goes down quite a bit. But
Yeah.
I just think that I'm stingier with it. It's like, being stingy with saying I love something because I feel like I have too much. So I kind of dampen it down.
Right, and that's completely fair, and I think that I'm not putting Vera Donovan as definitely having to shine the way I
Okay.
am
You can have
Dolores
on your
Claiborne,
list like
but I
question
do
marks. Like you can
suspect,
put her
yeah,
on it with like a maybe.
I do suspect she might have some, but not the way I know that Dolores
Yeah.
Claiborne does. But speaking of Little Tall Island, I was going to mention that as well. Storm of the Century is one of my favorite
Mm.
of the Stephen King TV
Okay.
miniseries, and that is set in on the same island, and so I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I also really loved the her Dolores's motivations throughout all of this. Like when it was just her being targeted,
Abused.
she
Yeah.
she was, she took matters into her hands. She smashed
Mm-hmm.
the milk jug on his head.
Right.
um Made sure he didn't do it again. She was very, very strong character, and
Mm-hmm.
I really love
See,
her
I
strength.
did remember that she was a much stronger character, which is
Yeah.
why that's why I said I almost was going to say this instead of Gerald's Game, except for I didn't know if we should do two Kathy Bates movies in a row.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. um and and I love how strong, but then when it becomes about her daughter
Yeah.
being abused, then it's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
that is the last straw. We're ending this. And listen,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a humanist. I don't necessarily agree with the idea of killing anybody.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am much more sympathetic to a
Mm-hmm.
cause when it is that kind of person who,
Right.
who is being killed. I care less about that, even though I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily condone it. I do care
Mm-hmm.
less about
Well,
that kind of a killing.
and and it's the way he affects her other two sons play a lot into
Mm,
it too,
yes.
with like her being afraid of, for one, and him obviously being already traumatized by the situation and steering clear of his dad as much as possible, and then the even more troubling, the younger one who like wants to be his dad. I do think that, I always have to keep reminding myself, okay, the current day, and this is the 90s, the past is like early 70s, late
Mhm.
60s, at which time there was much less options for getting out of this than
Yes,
there is
exactly.
now. And they would be time consuming if you could do them for the most part. And all the while, is your teenage daughter going to get raped by her dad?
Right.
So I think she did the right thing, 100%.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's hard for me as the person I
And
am
he
to
was
say
a
it was the
piece of
right
shit
thing, but
in
I'm
all
not.
other aspects of his life too. He wasn't just a piece of
Right.
shit. Like nobody's life was worse for him being gone. Okay, that's how I
Right.
look at it.
That's true. And I'm sympathetic to it. So
Mm-hmm,
I definitely am on board here. It does not bother me the way
mm-hmm,
sometimes this type of a story could. Um I You mentioned the other two boys.
mm-hmm,
Um Boy, was that youngest one just okay. So he was starting to become like his dad,
mm-hmm,
and then the only mention of his death was, well, after his funeral, the only
mm-hmm,
time his death is mentioned. Uh
mm-hmm.
and it's like, part of me for a second, and I don't think this is true, part of me for a second goes, why isn't she elaborating on that? is there something she's not telling us right now? Like, I don't think so.
I don't think she killed him.
I don't think
No.
that's the kind of person she is, unless something really bad was happening. But
Mhm.
I don't think that I do not think that she just is. I think that her husband was a special circumstance. That's not.
Mhm.
She's not a guardian angel killer or anything
Right.
like that. Like nothing like that. So no, I don't think it is. But yeah, he did. He did not get the best maybe not representation. He did not have the best representation in that book, just because
Mhm.
he was just like the only comparison that was made to him was that he was like the villain of this of this book,
Right.
and then
And he calls
he
kids
was
Jaime and get sent home
yeah,
for fighting. Like just awful things.
right, exactly. And then his death is not even explained
Mhm.
or even lamented. It's just
Mhm.
it's just after his funeral and
Mhm.
everybody's fine. I could go on about this book for years. But I just, as I said, really, really, really loved this book. Are there any
Mhm.
aspects of the book that we have not covered yet that you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, we touched on most things, I think. I did like how when she was trying to figure out what was going on with her daughter, like the places she kind of went with that before ever thinking that it was some sort of sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought they did that really well. I thought it was just all handled really well. And like I said, just kept me not so much on the edge of my seat because I knew the end results of things. Like
Right,
you can now going in, like she says right in the beginning, the end results of things.
right.
But as much as I could be, I guess, kind of kept in suspense, even though I knew where the story was going.
Engaged.
Yeah,
It
it
kept
definitely
you
kept me
very
engaged.
engaged. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm in complete agreement. I'm so glad because because the last two books I was just like, yeah, they were good.
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
and
Exactly.
so
I was like, no, I really am a big fan.
right. And so I'm so glad that we came across a book that I really love. We have a friend Carly who's not really into Stephen King. She's not really a big fan of the way he writes, but there are some that she does want to read. And I recommend this to her. I think Carly would
Yeah,
really enjoy this book.
absolutely.
And she's watching right now. Carly, read the book. But yeah, let's move on to the movie. And just as much as Dolores didn't seem to care about her younger son, the movie didn't care about either of them.
Nope, gone. I was like,
uh,
wow, okay, just they don't exist.
right, and it's funny, and I think that works for the film itself.
Yeah,
There was no value in having those two in the movie for the way that the
yeah.
movie was made.
I think I I have two big kind of qualms with the movie that I think
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally changed kind of some of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it, the boys are part of it in a way, but
Oh,
more
okay.
just as like um just representing more of the same in a way, like just but the way that she doesn't really find out for sure there's sexual abuse until long after her husband is dead. So now instead of being 100% sure her daughter has told her all this horrible stuff, she's killing him on suspicion,
Yes,
which
I agree.
makes her so much less empathetic to me. And I don't know how I would judge it if I didn't know the book first. I was really curious as to how she came over as a character if you didn't know the book at all.
I felt the same way, and I was like, I'm glad I read the book, and I'm glad I know that she has a bit of The Shining. So
Right.
because that helps.
It,
But if you've seen the movie and not read the book, tell us in the comments how
right.
that came off to you. But go on, Stacey.
And the other thing was, and I thought about this later, not so much while watching the movie, but in the book, she very much kills him. Like she pushes him in the well, he climbs up, she bashes him in the head. There's physical evidence as to why they think that she did it. In the movie, she could go to court and say exactly what happened, and it would have been an accident. He
Mm-hmm.
was chasing her and fell in the well, and then she just didn't do anything. Like, I mean, she doesn't have to say that part, obviously, but like,
Right.
so that also kind of fundamentally changes. So on one hand, she's worse because she's doing it based on a suspicion, but on the other hand, she didn't actively kill him so much as she does in the book. So I don't
Right.
know.
I thought that as well. And well, here's the thing. In the book, if she had gone to court and told them exactly what happened,
No,
she definitely did some murder, but she's definitely responsible. But it's most likely like manslaughter or something like that because he was actively trying to hurt her.
right,
And and her not helping him up and actively like hitting him with the thing, like that all could be explained in the book, like explained in court, and it could have.
I think that the purchase of the alcohol might be able to make it premeditated.
That's true, and that at
least on trial. Let's do it.
That is true, and I thought about that while reading, but I also thought, well, you can leave that part out. Like you can easily explain this away.
They knew about it though, like they brought it up, so they would bring it up in court. But anyway, yes,
right. But just that that you knew that you were doing it for that reason is the thing that you can.
Well, obviously, you don't say that. They would just,
right.
They would say it.
She had a pretty good case, but not a clear-cut case.
Right.
In the movie, she has a clear-cut case. He was chasing her. She got away from him, and he was threatening her even as he was about to fall, like as he was hanging onto the thing. There's no reason. There's no reasonable person is going to think that she should be saving the person who is actively threatening her.
Right.
So yes, I agree. I felt the same way. My big qualm with it was that instead of telling the story to Andy, she's telling this whole story to Selena. And the big thing in the book is she does not want Selena to know.
Right.
She does not want Selena to know that it is her. She does not want Selena to know it's her fault.
Yeah.
Or to think that it's her fault or feel that, whatever.
I also
here she's telling her.
Absolutely. Just her being there as an adult as much as she was, which I get, it was a story, it was a plot device so that we could get in flashbacks more what we got in storytelling. And I get why you would need to do that. And I didn't really have a problem with that. But I did like the setup of her basically telling Andy, and I think the medical examiner, who was the one that was really trying to pin it on her, which I, like, in retrospect, thought was pretty funny. But I'm like, well, it's a tiny town. Maybe the medical examiner would be more involved than normal because he was very involved for a medical examiner. But yeah, I really liked that setup of her telling the story. So I was a little disappointed, but I didn't think it did change her motivations a little bit, but it didn't bother me a ton.
Right. My qualms with it are more about how it is different from the book than how it makes the movie, because the movie is it actually probably is better that way as a movie. Although I would have liked to have seen her like sitting there telling the story, like that would have been fine. I think that would have made a good movie. But the drama that you get from the mother-daughter thing, I think does work for the movie. Whether it would be better a different way, it does work really well for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me tell you what else works for this movie. Kathy fucking Bates. My God. This is her best performance. I think she's better here than she is as Annie Wilkes. And I think Annie Wilkes is one of the greatest.
I mean, Annie Wilkes is mainly one note character.
That's
like
true. She flex a lot more in this one.
Yeah, there's definitely more. I say that so sheepishly because like she's great as Annie, and like yes, there is more to Annie than that one note, but a lot of what we actually get on screen is mostly that one note.
Exactly.
And so here there's a lot more to play with and dig into and really show a lot more.
Kathy Bates considers this her most underrated role, and I have to agree.
I agree. Yeah.
The fact that the only award she was nominated for was a satellite award, like she wasn't nominated for anything else. She was excellent. And the makeup, whoever did the makeup in this, well, at least the makeup for her, because if it's the same person that did the makeup for her, did the makeup for old Vera Donovan, they spent all their time on Kathy Bates because that was much better makeup. But the fact that you can go from 30 years in the past to present day, know that they are the same actor at the same time frame playing that role,
right?
But feel like they are different characters.
Yeah, very much.
Kathy
so.
Bates and the makeup department, they both did excellent. Because as I'm looking at her, I can't believe that the flash between those two is the same person at the same time.
Right, and you have to remember too, like
someone much older.
When we watched this today, like this was the early '90s that the movie came out, early to mid. So there's not de-aging on Kathy Bates, like in the flashbacks. Like now, it's kind of like we're used to that, but when it came out, that it was very unusual. So
that makeup, but the aging her up was excellent. Yes, exactly. It was so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it does feel like it feels like they used de-aging on her somehow in the mid '90s.
Yeah, exactly.
The flashbacks. So absolutely.
Yeah. That de-aging was so good. Her performance was so good. Everything about all that was great. I also, even though they changed the framing as far as who she's telling the story to, we do get the story. It's funny because everything that happens like in the flashbacks, with exceptions of some changes like that we mentioned already, it's pretty much what happens in the books as she's telling them. Everything outside of that is completely different. Like everything from present day is completely different, which is fine because you don't really get much of present day in the book because it's her just telling the story in present day. So I think that it makes sense for the movie the change they make, even though like we both agreed it would have been good to have her, telling this to because there's something about her confessing to the other murder to help get her off of the first murder. That is interesting and very much in character of Dolores Claiborne.
Right. And when the daughter comes in and basically defends her, we kind of lose a lot of her in those moments. Yeah, I do. I was a little like, okay, I don't love this when the daughter came. Like, I love this for the character because her daughter is, it's great for movie Dolores, but as a watcher, I don't love it.
It's hard because it's a good screenwriting technique. Like what they did was good for the movie. Does that? But the question is that a good adaptation? Because you can change things to make it work, but it also changes something within the story fundamentally.
I remember what I was going to say now.
Yes, go ahead.
The other thing about changing how the husband's death happens is that then now I don't know what his actual position was. I don't think he was the DA. He was like an investigator from the mainland or something.
Yeah,
the guy in the medical examiner proxy, I guess I thought of him as. Him going in so hard about it now because he didn't catch her then. It's so weird without the physical evidence that they had of the dad's murder. It's like, why are you so convinced? Like, there was nothing about that situation that should make you this convinced that she killed him. Like,
yes, I agree.
Like, you wouldn't have even been called if it had happened like that. It's because there would have been no reason to think it was anything more than an accident.
Right. It makes sense for in the book for it to be the medical examiner because he's trying to determine is this an accident or was there a murder? Like that's his job there.
Yes.
The investigator, the medical examiner should have deemed it an accident. That investigator from the mainland probably shouldn't have ever been there.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, so that whole thing, and he goes, and he's just after her so hard. And it's just, okay, like, we get it. You're upset that she got away with killing her husband, but why do you even know that?
Right. and yeah, it's, they definitely, I imagine that the changing this is what I assume. I assume that changing the method of, or kind of the events that of her killing him in the past was changed on rewrite and so
To
it
make her
didn't
more
quite add
sympathetic.
up. Yeah,
Right.
I imagine that they that they on rewrite made her less responsible for it, even though she's
Right.
still a little bit responsible, but less responsible for it. But in doing that, you weaken the other part of the story.
Part.
So I think that's
And,
probably what happened.
and I think also like they needed to make her more sympathetic because now she's killed on suspicion and
Mm-hmm.
also on suspicion of the harm to one child instead of the knowledge of harm to three,
Mm-hmm.
which makes her sympathetic in the book because
Mm-hmm.
she knows this stuff has happened and she knows what's going on and she has three kids to worry about. Not that three are more important than one, but it just exacerbates the situation. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I went back to like why I was kind of like I thought the boy should be there in some small capacity,
That makes sense. Yeah.
just as like to show that there's more going on.
Mm-hmm.
So and
No,
that's why
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, and that's why I mean I guess I don't because it's fundamentally changing the character, and I kind of don't like it as I don't think it's a bad movie necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
I it's funny because I liked the book so much more and I like the adaptation so much less. But yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
But
It's funny because, and we'll get to our tier ranking in a minute. And I have a feeling we're going to be a little bit split on it because I think the movie as a film, it's excellent. I think it's an excellent movie. But even though it's not a bad adaptation, the ways that it fails as an adaptation do affect the movie and do change things fundamentally, which is going to bring it down in my tier a little bit because I think it's an excellent movie, just not as excellent as the book is excellent. And so that's it's very interesting.
I really wish I could have seen it without knowing the book because I don't know. I can't say for sure, or at least maybe with a long time in between them, because
Right.
I just can't say for sure how I would feel about her in the movie. Like I really don't know. And that's what it kind of makes it tough for me to judge the movie on just being a movie, which I tried to do.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'm with you on that. That makes complete sense. We've mentioned the investigator who's played by Christopher Plummer.
The cast was fantastic. It was a stacked cast.
So good.
We got stacked for the time it came out, really, but it's stacked for now.
Right, exactly. But Christopher Plummer plays him, and this is very weird because in my mind, and this is probably why, in my mind, Christopher Plummer and Max von Sydow are very similar. Like they have a very similar energy and they're very similar type of characters. Are both kind of thin, very, very similar in the way that they look. But as I'm watching this, I'm like, gosh, he would have made a really great Leland Gaunt in Need for Speed. And as I'm thinking that, I'm like, gosh, that would have been such good casting. And then I go, wait, that was Max von Sydow in the movie. It's like that's why I felt like he would probably how I felt like that. But I do think he would have been a great Leland Gaunt. But I guess they probably I haven't seen that in a while, but I guess they probably cast that really well because they cast the other guy that I think of.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense. But okay, let's begin to move on. Do you have any other thoughts on the movie before we move on to number one fans?
I don't really think so.
Okay.
No, if I have one, I'll bring it up.
Excellent.
Sometimes things come to me after the fact, obviously.
Right. Well, and these might jog them. And I will say, this might be a popular book because when we were talking about Gerald's Game, people kept bringing up that it wasn't as good as Dolores Claiborne. Then when I asked about Dolores Claiborne,
people said the opposite.
No, crickets.
No.
Like for a while I had none. And I'm like, gosh, this must not be very popular. I do have some now. But for a while I was like, it wasn't like before when it was instantly I was getting the
It definitely is a more underrated book and movie. Like I feel like it should be way more talked about and popular than it is.
And that makes sense because like not to say anything about me, but the fact that I had not seen this movie speaks to the how kind of under the radar the movie is.
Yeah.
but let's look at our number one fans. The first thing that the first people that I heard from were in our Discord, and from Chad. Chad is a big Stephen King fan.
Yes, he
and
is.
so I asked
Chad.
about it, and I said, and he said, I remember starting it and thinking, there's no way King can drag this out into a full story about the murder of her husband, and yet King always finds a way to make it about the characters and their relationships and adds so much detail to things that happen. Reminds me of Dolan's Cadillac guy, about a guy planning the murder of his boss, and King goes into detail laying this elaborate plan in planning and execution. Granted, Dolan's Cadillac is a novella, but still, I don't know that. I haven't read that, so I don't know.
The short stories is really the holes that this show is going to fill for me. Is a lot of the short stories. So not all. I've delved into some, but not nearly as many as I have the actual novels. Right.
That's pretty much the same for me. I mean, I've read some, but yeah, not as much as the novels themselves. But Chad has not seen the movie, so he doesn't know from that. Carly, on the other hand, our friend Carly, who we mentioned before, watched the movie but has not read the book. And she said, I haven't read the book, just watched the movie, and I really liked it. I'm curious to see how the two timelines play out in the book, but I think it was well done in the movie. It's a solid drama about female relationships, and Kathy Bates is great in it. I would not call it particularly unique, but I really enjoyed it regardless. Love seeing two women bond over rightfully murdering their husbands.
Yeah, Vera and Dolores's relationship is fantastic, and we get a bit of it in the movie, not nearly as much, but it is great. And yes, they do very much like bond over that.
Yeah, that's excellent. I will say that Vera's is less justified, but
she's a less sympathetic character anyway.
Yes, that's true. That's all I was gonna say, is that but that doesn't really affect my feelings on her, because although I love Vera Donovan, she's also just not a great person. So it's fine. Noah Khan the Conqueror, who we talked about last time, who had never heard of Gerald's Game, he comments this time and says, is this the one where Evan Rachel Wood plays Dolores? No, wait, that's Westworld. Wrong author. So he's also never heard of this one.
But he's trying.
And last one from the Discord here, Ross said, the book is weird. I said, that's interesting, because I think this is one of King's least weird books. Can you elaborate? I asked him to elaborate by the time we recorded today, and if he did, I'd read his thoughts on the show. And he hadn't until just now. He just did.
Okay, good for him.
But not enough to really clarify. The moon thing. The moon thing, I remember, was weird.
The eclipse.
I guess. And it was just an eclipse. I need more from him, but I'm not getting it.
Having sat outside with my son and watched a full solar eclipse happen, I don't think they're that weird. Just rare, but it's different.
Maybe he's talking about, maybe he hasn't read Gerald's Game, and maybe he's talking about that, the weird connection. Which, this is also the interesting thing about The Shining. I was going to use this as evidence, because in Gerald's Game, an argument could be made that their connection was through the eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Dolores Claiborne makes it clear that their connection is not just the eclipse.
Right.
She thinks about her after the eclipse.
Yeah.
She sees what's happening to her after the eclipse.
I think
she sees her chained to the bed. She sees her chained to the bed. Yeah.
I thought that, exactly. And I thought she saw her, I thought that happened before the eclipse. But yeah, she saw her chained to the bed. She sees her in flashes just kind of randomly. So, and sometimes she was jogged by the smell, the smell of the semen, which wasn't semen on her end, but yeah.
Right. But it's the same description of which makes the semen description. Here's the thing. I didn't mention this in Gerald's Game. The the way he was describing the semen, I was like, does Stephen King have really weird smelling semen? Because the way he's describing it feels like he knows something I don't know about.
I can't disagree.
Going through Dolores Claiborne, I understand why he used the phrasing now because of the connection. It still doesn't make the semen weird,
Well,
not weird, but
maybe as much as Dolores is picking up on the scent, Jesse's picking up on the scent because that is when she sees
that's
Dolores.
True. Oh, that's true.
So maybe that's why it smelled so weird. Maybe
that's true, and that
doesn't smell like pennies.
But yeah, so I don't know. I'll have to get more from Ross. But for now, I don't know. The moon thing was weird.
I will say in the movie, it just kind of seems to be like, oh, all of a sudden today we have a solar eclipse. Like there's no build up to it really in town. There's no like planning ahead of time. It's just she's going off to work during the eclipse. There's a party. Like it's just there. So I can see where it might feel a little weird in the movie, just to like out of nowhere, we're having a big solar eclipse situation.
Right. Speaking of people who kind of left me hanging, last episode, I was left hanging by a Redditor who is the only person on Reddit who came back to talk about Dolores Claiborne. And I thought they were going to do it to me again. If you're watching this, I apologize. I don't know your pronouns. Leave them in the comments here. And in the future, on all your future comments that you make here, I will address you as such. But for now, you're a they because
I don't know.
But neat membership, $86.95. Last time they were like, oh yeah, I remember Dolores Claiborne and Rose Matter and this lot of.
Oh, it was the one who mentioned Rose Matter. Okay,
it was the one who mentioned Rose Matter. Yeah. Yes. Which is a book we both really love. And they had mentioned these books, and then they were like, how much time do I have? I'm going to do some research and come back. And then they never came back, but now they're back. And awesome. So the first thing they said was, absolutely love that Stephen King wrote the book after seeing Kathy Bates in Misery. He basically cast the movie before he even wrote the book. The movie is excellent, and I've read the book twice. I shall return with more words before you record. This was promised last time, and so I wasn't sure. But I did wake up this morning to a message and then another message after that. So they came back and said, I mentioned to my mom that I'd been rewatching / rereading Dolores Claiborne, Sleeping with the Enemy, Enough, Double Jeopardy, Gerald's Game, etc. And she made a face and asked why. And how could I stand it based on the content and the things that I've lived through personally? The only answer I had is because the women win. I think it's awesome. And then they came back to me this morning before we recorded with a bit more. Okay, I now own Dolores Claiborne digitally because I bought it on Amazon for $5. So did I. I also own Dolores Claiborne on digital for $5 because the rental is $3.99. To own it was $4.99, and I was like, got to get that deal. So yeah, I also did it that way. Anyway,
half the movies I own digitally are because of that exact situation.
Right.
Some of them were not good.
So they said they now own because they wanted Amazon for $5 last night to rewatch for the minieth time. And then I went and watched your coverage of Gerald's Game. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
You've got a new subscriber.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here.
Me too.
Apparently, the original idea was to tie the two books together more, and I'm glad he later decided against that. It would have made Gerald's Game unnecessarily complicated, and it would have subtracted from the story. I do love a good Easter egg, and I agree with your assessment on the Gerald's Game video that Jesse was at least has a bit of the shine. Dolores is such a strong woman. It absolutely makes sense for that protective nature to come to Jesse via the shine. I didn't need any further connection than that. I can appreciate that it's there, but more would have been too much, which I can't say I disagree. I mean, I would have enjoyed seeing maybe what kind of connection there is, but you didn't need it. Once I read both, I don't think
Yeah.
they needed anything more. Yeah.
No, absolutely. They work so well in tandem with each other.
Yes, absolutely. So we absolutely agree. Neat membership. If you give us your name in the comments, we can address you by name in the future. We hope to hear from you more often in the future and in our future episodes. But that is all for number one fans, which brings us to our tier ranking.
Okay, I will just say I have a funny anecdote. This is probably
Okay.
going to happen a lot because I make my boyfriend watch all these movies and listen to some of the books with me.
Mhm.
So, and he said, which I thought was pretty great, that Kathy Bates is so good at playing that like really tough kind of farm woman type character that he's pretty sure that 90s Kathy Bates could completely kick his ass. He's like, I don't think I could take her. She's just so strong and tough in these. And I'm paraphrasing for sure. But I just think that was a fun little aside.
Definitely. He's absolutely right. But just tell him, Reese, don't count out modern Kathy Bates. She could probably kick both of our asses.
I don't even know, to be honest, that he specified that it was early. Like I said, I paraphrased, so I might have stuck it in there myself. But
all right, so let's look at the tier lists. All right, so here we go. All right, so this is your first time joining us. We have a tier list. Basically, it's from S to F. It shines, aims with the eye, shoots with the mind, kills with the heart, guardian of the being, Cully, devil's grass, everything's ruined, and forgotten the face of his father. And then we're going to tier rank Dolores Claiborne now. I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but for me, this is S tier. This is tops for me. Like I said, it's top 5. It at least of the things that I've read. I loved this.
So I did love it. I do think that for me, because I have to fight against my nature to call everything my favorite and everything the best. So like I try to compare it with what my absolute favorite Stephen King books are. And I'm not going to say what they are because I don't want to, I'll save it for when they come up. Most of them have adaptations. And this isn't amongst them for me. So I would put it in a very strong B tier. Or A, sorry.
A?
A, yeah.
Okay. So
above misery.
That gives us the question is, do we put it in S tier or A tier because we are split?
Right.
Do you have thoughts about that? Because I'm definitely not going to just overrule you or anything like that, and you're not going to overrule me. So it's like, who knows?
I don't really know how to decide when we're split. I think the other thing I struggle and why I get kind of harder on things is because I struggle against recency bias, which also sometimes makes me knock things down a little bit. Because I do think that I'm human and I have it. So I try to take it into account. So that's the other reason it would be more of an S tier for me, because I do think I have a recency bias towards it that would, like, if I put it in S, I mean, oh my God, I'm like,
You meant, I understand.
Yes, thank you. If I put it in the highest tier, it would probably be because of recency bias, because I did love it a lot, but I do think it's probably in the second tier for me. I will say this is all right. I'll tell you some of the books that I compare it against that are like my favorite are The Shining and The Stand are the two biggest ones that I absolutely love. Some of the Dark Tower books and Doctor Sleep probably are like amongst my top 5, and I just don't think it's as good as them. I think it's great. I really like it and I think it's great, but I just don't think it's as good as them. So for me, then it belongs a step below them.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely dig that.
And Black House, but Black House doesn't have an adaptation, but I love Black House.
Okay. I am going to say let's go ahead and put it in A tier.
If we disagree on the movie, you can win, because I have a feeling we might be split on that too.
Oh Hold on, let me get over to this. There we go. Oop, nope. That's not right. A tier. All right. So we put it in aims with the eye, shoots with the mind, kills with the heart. But we know that in our in Matty Fresh's heart, it does shine. But I am okay with A tier because that is still excellent placement for this excellent book. So let's move on to the movie.
See,
All right.
this is going to happen to me a lot because now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, was I too hard on Gerald's Game as a movie? Because this is what happens to me. Because then I start looking at other things like, I think this is this level, but I liked it less. So should that have been up a level? But
you liked it less than Gerald's Game? Is that what you're saying?
I thought Gerald's Game was a better adaptation. I didn't necessarily like the movie less, but I did think Gerald's Game was a better adaptation of the book.
I agree that Gerald's Game is a better adaptation. I do think that Dolores Claiborne, I think it's equal in terms of the movie. I think the movie, I think both things are very good. I might even give the edge to Dolores Claiborne simply for the makeup and the acting. But for me, and you said that we were going to probably disagree,
but I think maybe we're not.
I don't know. It's hard because I really wanted to. Here's the thing. I really wanted to put it in A tier, but then as we were talking about it, I described a movie that might be in B tier. But because I did have Gerald's Game the movie in B tier
originally.
We put it down to C tier.
So I would put it in C, but we put Gerald's Game. Can we move Gerald's Game up to B and put this in C?
Oh,
because I think Gerald's Game is a better adaptation, huh?
It is a better adaptation, but for me, I consider the movie and the adaptation both, and I do think that. Can we just move them both to B?
No.
No?
No, I just don't think they're both B movies. You can pick which one goes to B and which one stays. Which one? I feel like that one should. I don't know. I don't think they're equal.
I don't think they're equal necessarily, because there could be variations on a tier. I don't think they're equal necessarily. I think that we are, but we do have a difference in which way they are not equal to each other. Because I do think that Dolores Claiborne is slightly better. So it's.
So I guess like I don't disagree that it could be a slightly better movie. I think they're pretty even as far as movies go, but I do think Dolores is a more rewatchable movie, which for me always counts for maybe more than it should. So I guess then they would be kind of equal because it's a better movie but worse adaptation. I try to take both into account. I have no idea what we're going to do when we have The Shining to put up here because I love this.
Yeah. Oh, that's
it's going to be so hard. But I don't have to worry about it for a little while.
Listen, I think personally we should move them both to B.
Okay.
That does not mean they're equal, but it does put them on an even place. That does put them in an even tier for different reasons. So I think that would probably be best. I think moving, okay.
I can do that.
All right, so we're moving Gerald's Game up. Gerald's Game has entered the chat.
I do, like I said, I really try hard to I'm hard on things because I try to counteract my I can't think of the word, but my like A, recency bias, and B, just the fact that I love everything. Like I'm always like, oh, it's so good, I loved it. So like I do get tougher on things than always listening. You should see how tough I am on Matt Damon movies. Like I'm really tough on them because I know I'm biased towards Matt Damon.
That makes sense. I understand that because, and I think, and we've talked about this before, how the older I get, the less I hate things like I used to. Like it's hard because sometimes it's it's hard to focus on the negative about things and
Right.
just enjoy
And I'm
the
just
things you
not,
enjoyed
that's
about it.
just not my way in general. I'm just
Right.
not that person. I'm the annoying person that will find a silver lining in the absolute like worst moment of your life. I might not
Right.
tell you because that's rude, but like, but I'll in my head, I'll think it.
Well, in that case, we're gonna leave those there. We got through this. We had some disagreements on the tier on both sides of the
Mhm.
tier ranking, but I think we got there. I think
Yeah. It's
we have
not
it
going to
at
be
a
the last
good
time, I'm
place.
sure.
Oh no, I'm sure it's not. But we got there. We got to talk about this
Mhm.
excellent book and this really good movie.
And
So
can I
we
say,
got to, yeah.
we ended up in the month of March, because this is being filmed in March. I don't know when it's going to come out, but we ended up doing 3 strong women. I mean, I was going to say that books about, 3 strong women main characters, but Misery's not really, and, Annie's not really the main character, but she certainly is the lasting impression. So, yeah.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it.
um,
We
all right.
honored Women's Month accidentally.
We did it. Well, we did Gerald's Game on
On
purpose.
purpose.
The other two were yeah, but okay. So that is going to leave us with Dolores Claiborne. Tell us in the
Mhm.
comments. Talk to us. Tell us how you feel about this book, about the movie, how you feel about our
Mhm.
tier ranking. Were we wrong? If you're need
Probably.
membership 86.95, tell us about you so we can
Yeah, so happy to have you here.
we can address you. So happy to have you. And we loved your comments on this today. But next time we are covering a novella that has an
Mhm.
adaptation that a lot of people really, really, really love, and that is we are
Yes.
covering The Body and Stand By Me is the movie. We are going to cover different seasons. There are 4 novellas in different seasons. They are The Body, Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, Apt Pupil, and a
Mhm.
4th one that I can't remember but doesn't have adaptation. So we'll just have to review that one and
I
not
mean,
the
I
movie.
could find my copy of the book and look it up, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
It's fine. We'll get there.
Mhm.
But next week we're covering The Body / Stand By Me.
Yes.
If you don't want to go to Reddit to give us your thoughts on that, and you've read the book and or the movie, you want to give us some thoughts for us to read during our number one fan section, put it in the comments of this video, and I will read them next time as well. But once again, my name is Matt.
I'm Stacy.
Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the many. The number. I'm sorry.
We're going to do that again. Once again, I am Matt.
And I'm still Stacy.
Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
We did it. All right.